Listen, this is not a gentle suggestion. This is not a distant whisper carried on the wind. This is a weight in the chest, a stirring in the depths of the soul, a holy urgency that will not let you sit comfortably any longer. God says, pack everything now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when it makes sense to your logic or aligns with your plans. Now. And the reason this message shakes you is because somewhere deep within, you already know it is true. Something is ending. Something is shifting. Something you have grown familiar with is about to be left behind. And God is not asking for partial obedience. God is calling for total surrender. You have been sensing it. In the quiet moments when the noise fades and you are alone with your thoughts, in the restlessness that sleep cannot cure, in the dissatisfaction that no success, no relationship, no routine can soothe. You try to name it anxiety. You try to label it impatience. You try to ignore it by staying busy. But it is not anxiety. It is not restlessness. It is the sound of God moving ahead of you, and your spirit knows you are supposed to follow. When God says pack everything, it is because where you are going, nothing can be left behind. Not your faith, not your courage, not your obedience, not even your wounds. Everything must come because everything is about to be transformed. Understand this clearly. God never tells a person to pack without already preparing a destination. God never disrupts without intention. God never uproots without purpose. If God is telling you to pack, it means the ground beneath your feet has completed its assignment. You have extracted all the lessons, endured all the trials, survived all the delays that place could offer you. What once was protection has become limitation. What once was provision has become confinement. And God, in divine wisdom, refused to let you rot in familiarity when you were designed for expansion. This command is heavy because it confronts attachment. Packing means touching things you have avoided. Packing means acknowledging what you hoped would stay permanent. Packing means accepting that comfort is not calling the shots anymore. You are not packing because everything is perfect. You are packing because God is faithful. You are not packing because you are fearless. You are packing because obedience matters more than fear. God does not wait for you to feel brave. God responds to willingness. And right now, God is not asking you to understand the whole journey. God is asking you to trust the voice giving the command. There are people listening to this whose hearts are racing because they know exactly what everything means. It means the version of yourself that learned how to survive instead of live. It means the habits you formed in seasons of lack that no longer fit a season of abundance. It means the mindset that kept you safe but small. It means the relationships you outgrew but kept out of loyalty. God is saying, pack it all, because where you are going, even the broken pieces will be repurposed. Nothing is wasted when God is leading. You may be wondering why now? Why this urgency? Why not later? Because delay has already cost you enough. Because hesitation has kept you circling mountains you were meant to leave. Because the window is open and divine timing does not negotiate with human comfort. When God moves fully. Partial obedience has never produced full miracles. You cannot carry yesterday's fear into tomorrow's promise and expect peace. God is saying, pack everything now because the season ahead requires readiness, not resistance. This is not about the geography alone. Some of you will move locations, yes, but many of you are being moved internally. God is relocating your thinking. God is relocating your expectations. God is relocating your identity. You have lived too long under labels that God never gave you. You have defined yourself by past mistakes, by delayed prayers, by opinions that carried no divine authority. Packing everything means releasing those false identities and carrying only what God has spoken over you. And if God spoke it, it will survive the journey. There is a fear attached to this command because packing implies uncertainty. You know what you are leaving, but you do not yet see where you are arriving. This is where faith stops being a concept and becomes a decision. Faith is not feeling confident. Faith is moving while trembling. Faith is stepping forward while still asking questions. Faith is trusting that God sees what you cannot see and knows what you cannot know. When God says, pack everything, God is saying, I have already gone ahead of you. Some of you are grieving even as you listen, grieving the version of life you thought you would have by now, grieving plans that did not unfold the way you prayed, grieving people who were meant for a season, not a lifetime. God sees that grief. God honors that pain. But do not confuse grief with disobedience. You can grieve and still move. You can cry and still pack. Obedience does not require numbness. It requires trust. And God is gentle with those who move forward with tears in their eyes. You are not being rushed because God is impatient. You are being called because the season is ripe. There are doors that respond only to timing, not effort. There are opportunities that expire if ignored. God's instruction to pack is not pressure, it is mercy. It is protection from staying too long in places that will soon become barren. It is preservation from environments that will no longer sustain your growth. God is not removing you to punish you. God is relocating you to fulfill you. Think about this. Packing is preparation. Packing is intentional. Packing assumes arrival. God would not tell you to pack if arrival were uncertain. Heaven does not issue empty commands. Divine instruction carries divine guarantee. The same voice that tells you to move is the voice that will sustain you when you arrive. You are not stepping into chaos, you are stepping into alignment. And alignment always feels uncomfortable before it feels peaceful. Some of you have been waiting for confirmation from people, signs from circumstances, reassurance from logic. But God has already spoken. The unease you feel is not confusion, it is conviction. The disruption you sense is not disorder, it is transition. When God speaks, clarity does not always come as calm. Sometimes it comes as urgency. Sometimes it comes as a holy disturbance that refuses to let you settle. That disturbance is not your enemy. It is your invitation. Pack everything now because what is coming will require all of you. Half-hearted faith will not survive the next season. Casual obedience will not sustain the weight of the blessing ahead. God is about to entrust you with responsibility, influence, and impact that demands maturity. You cannot enter carrying old excuses. You cannot arrive clinging to outdated limitations. You cannot step into new ground with an old mindset and expect fruit. God is saying, pack everything because nothing can be left behind unresolved. This includes your prayers. Your unanswered prayers are not failures, they are seeds. Carry them. Your disappointments are not evidence of abandonment, they are evidence of endurance. Carry them. Your testimonies are not complete stories, they are chapters. Carry them. Everything you have walked through has prepared you for where you are going, even if you do not yet see how God does not waste seasons. God repurposes them. Do not be surprised if people do not understand your urgency. Not everyone hears the same instructions at the same time. Not everyone is meant to follow you into the next chapter. Some are assigned to the previous season and cannot interpret the call of the future. This is where obedience becomes lonely. But loneliness does not mean absence of God. Often it means closeness. God removes noise so you can hear direction. God separates so you can concentrate. God calls you apart so you can be positioned ahead. Pack everything now, because delay will try to disguise itself as wisdom. Fear will dress itself as caution. Comfort will argue for patience. But the voice of God cuts through all of that with clarity that pierces the soul. You will not mistake it when you truly listen. It will not flatter you. It will not negotiate. It will not explain itself fully. It will simply command, and your spirit will recognize its authority. There is a difference between being unprepared and being unwilling. God does not require perfection. God requires obedience. You do not need all the answers to move forward. You need alignment with the one who holds the answers. Every step you take in obedience releases the next instruction. Light comes to those who walk, not to those who wait for full visibility. Pack everything now, because clarity is coming, but it comes on the road, not before it. Some of you are worried about provision, about stability, about security. Hear this deeply. God has never called anyone forward without sustaining them along the way. Provision is not tied to place. It is tied to obedience. Security is not found in familiarity. It is found in divine covering. Stability is not rooted in routine. It is rooted in trust. Where God leads, God supplies. Where God sends, God supports. Your responsibility is obedience. God's responsibility is outcome. This is not a message for the casual listener. This is for those who feel the weight of destiny pressing on their chest. Those who know they were not created to live small, safe, and silent. Those who sense that the next chapter will demand the courage they have not yet used. God is calling you higher, not to exhaust you, but to expand you. Growth always stretches before it settles. Transformation always disrupts before it establishes. Pack everything now, because the grace that carried you through survival is shifting into grace for stewardship. You are moving from being preserved to being positioned, from being protected to being entrusted, from being hidden to being revealed. And this requires a different level of responsibility. God does not elevate carelessly. God prepares thoroughly. This command is preparation. If your hands are shaking as you pack, let them shake. If your heart is pounding, let it pound. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is obedience in the presence of fear. God is not disappointed by your trembling. God is honored by your movement. Each step you take, no matter how unsure, is a declaration that God's voice matters more than your comfort. One day, you will look back and realize this was the moment everything changed. Not when you arrived, but when you obeyed. Not when things made sense, but when you trusted. This was the moment you chose faith over familiarity, obedience over explanation, surrender over safety. This was the moment you packed everything and discovered that God had already packed the future with purpose. There is a sacred seriousness to this moment that cannot be softened. This is not emotional hype or spiritual dramatics. This is a defining intersection where obedience rewrites the future. God is not merely shifting your environment. God is reshaping your capacity. The reason this command feels overwhelming is because the next season will demand a version of you that cannot be sustained by old limitations. God is not asking you to become someone else. God is calling you to finally become who you were always meant to be. When God says, pack everything now, God is also saying, do not underestimate what you carry. You have survived the storms that should have broken you. You have endured silence that would have crushed a weaker spirit. You have learned discernment through disappointment, patience through delay, and strength through surrender. These are not random experiences. They are provisions for the road ahead. God trained you quietly so that when the call came, you would not collapse under its weight. There will be moments on this journey where doubt tries to speak louder than faith. Doubt will ask you if you misheard. Doubt will remind you of what you left behind. Doubt will tempt you to romanticize the past simply because it is familiar. But hear this clearly. Familiarity is not proof of safety, and nostalgia is not proof of calling. God leads forward, not backward. What is behind you may feel comfortable, but it cannot carry what is ahead of you. You are not leaving because you failed. You are leaving because you finished enduring, finished waiting, finished shrinking to fit spaces that could no longer hold your growth. Completion often looks like loss to those who do not understand the divine timing. But God knows when a chapter has reached its final sentence. And when God closes a chapter, it is never to erase your story. It is to continue it with greater clarity and power. This season will require discernment more than speed. Packing everything does not mean rushing blindly. It means moving intentionally. God is teaching you to listen more closely, to depend more deeply, to trust more fully. There will be decisions ahead that cannot be made by logic alone. They will require spiritual sensitivity. God is sharpening that sensitivity now, teaching you to recognize the difference between noise and instruction, between pressure and purpose. Do not be surprised if the path feels unfamiliar. New ground always does. The unfamiliar is not a sign that God is absent. It is often evidence that God is doing something unprecedented in your life. You cannot rely on old patterns to navigate new territory. God is inviting you into a deeper reliance, one where trust replaces control and obedience replaces certainty. There will be moments when you feel exposed, as if you have stepped out without enough covering. But remember this, obedience itself is covering. Alignment is protection. You are safer moving with God into uncertainty than standing still without divine direction. God's presence does not depend on your comfort. It rests on your obedience. As you move forward, your priorities will shift. Things that once mattered deeply will lose their grip. Things you once ignored will demand your attention. This is not loss of self, it is refinement. God is recalibrating your values so that what you carry aligns with where you are going. Excess will fall away, distractions will lose their appeal. What remains will be what is essential for the assignment ahead. Some days, progress will feel slow. Other days, change will come so quickly it will take your breath away. Do not measure this journey by consistency of comfort, but by consistency of obedience. Growth is not always visible in the moment. Trust that God is working even when the evidence is subtle. Roots grow in darkness before anything appears above ground. You may encounter resistance not just from circumstances, but from within yourself. All the fears do not disappear overnight. All the habits do not release easily. But resistance does not mean you are moving in the wrong direction. Often it means you are breaking through internal barriers that once defined you. God is patient, but God is persistent. God will keep calling until you fully step into alignment. There is also joy ahead, deep, grounding joy that does not depend on ease, joy that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are supposed to be, even when the road is challenging, joy that anchors you when outcomes are still forming. This joy is not loud or shallow. It is steady and unshakable. It grows from intimacy with God, from walking closely, listening carefully, and trusting completely. Pack everything now, because God is about to reveal dimensions of purpose you could not have understood in the previous season. Some revelations only come in motion. Some truths only become clear after you leave what is familiar. God is not withholding clarity to frustrate you. God is unfolding it in stages to strengthen you. One day you will stand in a place physically, spiritually, emotionally, and realize that every step, every sacrifice, every moment of uncertainty was necessary. You will see how God connected what once seemed unrelated. You will understand why timing mattered, why waiting mattered, why moving when you did mattered. And gratitude will rise, not just for where you arrived, but for the courage God gave you to leave. Until then, stay anchored, stay listening, stay obedient. Let God lead without interruption. Let trust replace urgency. Let faith quiet fear. The same God who commanded you to pack everything is walking with you step by step. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where obedience has placed you. So keep moving, keep trusting, keep carrying what God has given you. The journey is not easy, but it is holy. And where God is leading you, your obedience will make sense, your faith will deepen, and your life will bear fruit in ways you never imagined possible. And as you take another breath, feel the weight of this truth settling deeper within you. Obedience is not loud, but it is decisive. When God speaks, the soul does not argue, it responds. What exhausts you is not the movement ahead, it is the resistance within. You have been tired, not because the journey is long, but because you have been standing at the edge, wrestling with a command that demands trust beyond the evidence. God is not calling you to rush blindly. God is calling you to move intentionally, guided by a certainty that transcends sight. There is a sacred loneliness that accompanies divine instruction, not because God withdraws, but because clarity separates you from voices that cannot carry the weight of where you are going. When God says, pack everything, it is because the next place will require discernment. You will need to hear clearly, decide wisely, and stand firmly. Familiar noise would only distort that clarity. So do not fear the quiet. In the stillness, God sharpens your hearing. In the silence, God strengthens your resolve. You may feel unqualified. You may feel exposed. You may feel as though you should be further along by now. But God does not measure readiness the way humans do. God measures the heart. God measures surrender. God measures availability. The command to pack is not based on your resume, it is based on God's purpose. The very awareness of your limitations is what keeps you dependent on divine guidance, and dependence is not weakness, it is alignment. There are things you will leave behind that once defined you, roles you played to survive, masks you wore to belong, expectations you carried that were never placed on you by God. Packing everything does not mean clinging to every identity. It means discerning what truly belongs to you. God is stripping away what was assumed so that what was assigned can emerge. This is not loss, it is refinement. As you move, there will be moments when the past calls out to you. Familiar comforts will try to convince you that staying was safer. But remember this, safety without purpose slowly becomes suffocation. God did not design you merely to exist without pain. God designed you to live with meaning. And meaning often requires movement. When you feel the pull of what was, anchor yourself in the voice that called you forward. That voice does not lie. That voice does not mislead. That voice sees beyond the horizon you cannot yet perceive. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. Timing is not punishment. It is preparation. Everything you endured sharpened your discernment. Every delay strengthened your endurance. Every unanswered question deepened your dependence. Now, the instruction comes because the preparation is complete. God does not rush growth, and God does not waste readiness. This moment arrives precisely when it must. Do not underestimate the power of a single obedient step. Movement breaks stagnation. Action activates provision. When you choose to move in faith, unseen systems begin to align. Paths open that were invisible while you stood still. Support appears that could not find you where you were. Obedience shifts environments. It changes atmospheres. It signals heaven that you are ready to be entrusted with more. There will be uncertainty, yes, but uncertainty is not the absence of direction, it is the absence of a full disclosure. God rarely reveals the entire map because trust is built one step at a time. What you need for the next moment will be given in the next moment. You are not meant to carry the future all at once. You are meant to walk with God, present and attentive, learning to rely on daily guidance rather than distant guarantees. As you pack, do it with intention. Carry gratitude for where you have been, but do not confuse gratitude with the obligation to stay. Honor the past without being anchored to it. God's faithfulness behind you is proof of God's faithfulness ahead. You are not stepping into uncertainty alone. You are moving with the same presence that sustained you through every previous storm. There will be resistance, not always external, but internal. Old doubts will surface. Old fears will attempt to reassert authority. This is not a sign you are wrong. It is evidence that change is happening. Growth always challenges the parts of us that learned to survive in smaller spaces. Let those fears speak, but do not let them decide. The decision has already been made by the one who knows the end from the beginning. When you arrive wherever and however that arrival unfolds, you will recognize it not by perfection, but by alignment. There will be a quiet confirmation in your spirit, a sense of rightness that cannot be explained logically, a peace that coexists with responsibility. That is how God confirms direction, not by removing all challenge, but by anchoring you in purpose. And as you move forward, there will come a moment when you realize that the command was not only about where you are going, but about who you are becoming in the movement. God is not interested in relocation without transformation. The journey itself is a refining fire, not meant to consume you, but to purify your vision. Every step forward reveals what still needs to be released and what must be strengthened. God uses motion to expose truth within you that stillness could never uncover. You will notice that your tolerance for certain things begins to fade. Conversations that once entertained you will now feel empty. Environments that once energized you will begin to drain you. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. God is tuning your spirit to a higher frequency, and what no longer resonates will naturally fall silent. Do not fight this shift. It is evidence that your inner compass is being recalibrated by divine guidance. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood, even by those who once knew you well. Growth often creates distance, not because love has diminished, but because direction has changed. God does not ask you to explain what has not yet fully manifested. Some people will only understand your obedience after the fruit becomes visible. Until then, let God be your validation. Approval from people is temporary. Alignment with God is eternal. As the days unfold, you may find yourself standing in unfamiliar spaces, making decisions you never imagined you would have to make. Do not be intimidated by new responsibility. God never opens doors without also expanding capacity. The stretching you feel is not harm, it is preparation. Muscles grow under resistance, and so does faith. What once felt heavy will soon feel natural, because God is training you to carry more. There will be times when you look back and wonder how you endured what you endured, how you survived seasons of waiting, disappointment, and uncertainty. And in those moments, humility will rise within you, not pride, but gratitude. Gratitude for a God who sustained you when you had no explanation. Gratitude for protection you did not recognize at the time. Gratitude for closed doors that redirected you toward purpose. Do not rush the unfolding. Speed is not the goal. Faithfulness is. God is not impressed by haste. God honors consistency. Each obedient step builds a foundation strong enough to support what is coming next. If you move too quickly without depth, you risk arriving unprepared. Trust the pace God sets. Divine timing is never late and never wasteful. There will be quiet victories that no one applauds. Inner battles won in silence. Decisions made in private that shape your future in powerful ways. These moments matter deeply. God sees them all. Obedience that goes unnoticed by others is often the obedience that carries the greatest reward. What is built in secrecy will stand in public. As you continue, you will begin to sense a deeper peace, not because everything is settled, but because you are no longer fighting the direction. Resistance drains the soul, surrender restores it. When you stop wrestling with the call and start walking in it, strength returns, clarity sharpens, confidence grows not in yourself alone, but in the one guiding you. You are learning now that faith is not dramatic, it is steady. It is waking up and choosing obedience again and again. It is trusting when emotions fluctuate. It is moving forward even when affirmation is absent. This kind of faith does not collapse under pressure because it is rooted in relationship, not circumstance. Pack everything now was never a threat, it was an invitation to step out of confinement and into calling, an invitation to exchange predictability for purpose, an invitation to trust that God's vision for your life exceeds anything you could design on your own. What lies ahead is not perfect, but it is purposeful. Not easy, but it is meaningful. And one day, you will stand firmly in a place you once only sensed in faith. You will recognize it not by external success alone, but by internal alignment. You will feel whole, grounded, and clear. And in that moment, you will understand that the command to pack was an act of love. Love that refused to let you stay small. Love that called you forward. Love that knew you were ready even when you doubted yourself. And as the distance between who you were and who you are becoming widens, a deeper awareness will begin to rise within you. You will realize that this journey is not about escaping a place, but about entering alignment with truth. God is not removing you to isolate you. God is positioning you to see clearly. Clarity often comes after separation because distraction blurs purpose. What you are gaining now is vision sharp, sober, and steady. There will be moments when the silence feels heavier than the noise ever did. In those moments, resist the urge to fill it with unnecessary emotion or borrowed voices. Silence is not emptiness. It is sacred space. God speaks most clearly where there is room to listen. What feels uncomfortable at first will soon become the ground where discernment grows strong. In stillness, motives are revealed. In quiet, direction becomes undeniable. You may notice that your prayers begin to change. They will become less about asking and more about aligning. Less about outcomes and more about obedience. This is maturity taking shape. When trust deepens, desperation fades. God is not offended by your questions, but God is honored by your willingness. The shift in your prayer life is proof that your faith is no longer dependent on constant reassurance. You are learning to walk even when the sky is quiet. There will be days when progress feels invisible, when nothing seems to move outwardly, yet everything is being rearranged inwardly. These days are not wasted. They are foundational. God often does the deepest work beneath the surface, strengthening what cannot be seen so that what will be seen can endure. Do not measure growth only by visible change. Measure it by increased peace, sharpened discernment, and steadier resolve. As you continue forward, you will recognize that some battles no longer provoke the same reaction. Things that once triggered fear now invite reflection. Situations that once overwhelmed you now meet a calmer response. This is not numbness, it is authority settling in. God is teaching you to stand rather than react, to respond rather than retreat. Strength is being formed quietly without spectacle. You are also learning that obedience does not always feel heroic. Often, it feels ordinary. It looks like a consistency. It sounds like a restraint. It shows up as choosing integrity when no one is watching. These moments build a life that can carry weight. God values faithfulness in the small because the small is where character is forged. There will come a point when you realize that the fear you once had was not about the unknown, but about letting go of control. Control feels safe because it is familiar, but it limits what God can do. Trust opens space for possibility. God is not asking you to abandon wisdom. God is inviting you to release the illusion that you must manage every outcome. Surrender is not loss, it is access. You may encounter unexpected favor along the way, doors opening without force, support arriving without explanation. These moments are not coincidence, they are confirmation. God often affirms direction through provision that arrives just in time, not early enough to eliminate faith, but not late enough to cause harm. Pay attention to these signs, not to depend on them, but to recognize the faithfulness surrounding your obedience. As you move deeper into this path, humility will guard you. You will understand that progress is not proof of superiority, but evidence of grace. The further you go, the more aware you become of your dependence on God. This dependence does not weaken you, it steadies you. Pride collapses under pressure, but humility stands firm because it leans on something greater than itself. One of the most profound changes will be how you view yourself. You will no longer define your worth by productivity, approval, or visible success. You will recognize your value as rooted in purpose. God did not call you because you were flawless. God called you because you were willing. That willingness continues to shape your path long after the initial command. When challenges arise, and they will, do not interpret them as resistance from God. Growth often attracts pressure because it requires refinement. What feels like opposition may actually be confirmation that you are moving into territory that matters. God does not promise ease, but God promises presence. And presence is enough to endure what must be endured. Eventually, you will look back and realize that the most important change was not external at all, it was internal. Your faith became steadier. Your trust became quieter but stronger. Your identity became rooted rather than reactive. You did not simply move, you matured. And that maturity will sustain you long after the excitement of a transition phase. So continue to walk with intention. Let each step be guided, not rushed. Let each decision be shaped by alignment rather than fear. God is not finished. The instruction to pack was only the beginning. What unfolds next will reveal not just where you are going, but why the journey mattered. Stay attentive, stay grounded, stay faithful. The same God who called you forward is still leading, still refining, still faithful, and the path ahead, though unfolding slowly, is filled with purpose that will stand the test of time. So let this be the moment you stop standing at the threshold and fully step into obedience, not with haste, not with fear, but with a settled resolve that God knows exactly what God is doing. You were not confused, you were being prepared. You were not delayed, you were being strengthened, and you were never abandoned, even in the moments when the road felt silent. Every instruction, every pause, every push forward has carried intention. God has been precise, not accidental. What lies ahead will not always be easy, but it will be meaningful. You will face moments that stretch you beyond what you once believed you could handle, and you will discover strength you did not know you possessed. You will encounter responsibility that feels heavy, and you will realize that God has already formed the capacity within you to carry it. The journey will not flatter you, but it will refine you. And refinement is the birthplace of a purpose. Do not wait for perfect confidence before you move. Confidence grows in motion. Trust deepens in obedience. Peace settles when resistance ends. You are not required to feel ready, you are required to respond. God does not call the fully formed. God forms the willing along the way. Every step you take in alignment releases what you need for the next step. Remember this, when uncertainty rises, the command did not come from impulse, and the destination is not fragile. God does not redirect lives carelessly. God moves with foresight, with wisdom that spans beyond what you can see. What feels risky to you is already secured in divine knowledge. You are not stepping into the unknown. You are stepping into something already known by God. So pack everything, your faith, your courage, your lessons, your scars, your prayers, and move forward without looking back for permission. Honor the past, but do not live there. Respect what was, but commit fully to what is unfolding. The season behind you has done its work. The season ahead is waiting for your obedience. Walk on with humility. Walk on with steadiness. Walk on with a heart open to instruction and a spirit anchored in trust. God is not finished writing your story. The command to move was not the end. It was the beginning of alignment, of clarity, of a purpose coming into focus. And when you finally stand in the place shaped by obedience, you will understand why staying was never an option. You will see that every step mattered, every release was necessary, and every moment of trust was honored. God's voice was faithful. God's guidance was true. And your obedience became the bridge between who you were and who you were always meant to be. If you are hearing this right now, I need you to stop whatever you're doing and listen with every part of your spirit. This is not coincidence. This is not timing. This is not an algorithm. This is not curiosity. You did not wander into this moment. You were led. And I say this with a weight in my chest and fire in my bones. God told me to warn you. And if you're seeing this, I'm sorry, because it means something has reached its end. Not soon, not eventually, not if things change. It is over. The decision is final. I know how harsh this sounds. I know how your heart tightens when you hear words like that. I know your mind is already racing, trying to defend what you've been holding on to, trying to negotiate, trying to soften the blow. But hear me carefully. God does not speak without purpose. And God does not end the things out of cruelty. When God declares a final decision, it is not to destroy you, it is to deliver you. There comes a moment in every life when mercy speaks softly for a long time, patiently, repeatedly, in whispers and nudges and inner unrest. And then there comes a moment when mercy stands up straight and speaks clearly. This is that moment. Not because God has run out of patience, but because you have reached a threshold where delay would become damage. You have stood at the edge long enough. You have prayed about the same thing long enough. You have cried over the same cycle long enough. God is not angry with you, but God is finished allowing what has been draining you to continue. You may feel panic right now. You may feel grief rising before you even understand what is being taken. That's because your soul already knows what your mind is still trying to deny. There is something you have been holding on to that God has been warning you about for a long time. Something that once felt safe, familiar, or even divinely assigned, but it has expired. And expired things do not slowly fade. They must be removed. God says the decision is final because if it were left to your emotions, you would keep choosing what feels familiar over what is faithful. You would keep returning to what once worked but no longer aligns. You would keep mistaking patience for permission. But patience is not permission. Silence is not approval. Delay is not denial, but neither is it endorsement. Hear this clearly. What God is ending is not your future. It is the obstruction to it. There are endings that feel like a punishment because we don't see what they are protecting us from. There are closed doors that feel cruel because we cannot see the collapse that would have happened if we had walked through them. God sees what you cannot. God knows what you do not. God understands the full consequence of another season spent where you no longer belong. You have been surviving, not living. You have been enduring, not growing. You have been praying for relief while refusing release. And God, in infinite wisdom, has decided that enough is enough. This is why you feel a strange mix of sorrow and relief. This is why something inside you has already started loosening its grip. This is why you felt restless, unsettled, unable to fully enjoy what you once clung to. That is not confusion. That is discernment, waking up. God is not asking your opinion on this. God is not waiting for you to feel ready. God is not requiring your understanding. God is simply informing you it is over. Not because you failed, not because you are unworthy, not because you didn't pray hard enough, but because you have outgrown the space you are trying to stay in. And growth always demands separation. There are seasons God allows, and there are seasons God ends. The danger is when we try to resurrect what God has buried. The danger is when we keep watering what God has cut off. The danger is when we romanticize what God has already judged. You keep asking God for clarity, but clarity has been knocking on your door for a long time. You just didn't like what He was saying. God says, I warned you gently. I warned you quietly. I warned you repeatedly. Now I warn you clearly. This ending will not ask for your consent. It will not wait for your comfort. It will not arrive wrapped in explanations. It will feel abrupt because it must be. It will feel final because it is. And it will feel painful because release always hurts when attachment has gone too far. But do not confuse pain with harm. Surgeons cut to heal. Storms break to cleanse. God ends things to protect destiny. There are people, patterns, places, and promises you have attached to that were never meant to be permanent. They were tools, not homes. Lessons, not legacies. Assignments, not identities. And the longer you stay, the more you confuse purpose with permanence. God says, if you keep holding on, you will miss what I am bringing. This is why the decision is final. Because what is coming next requires your hands to be empty. You cannot carry yesterday into tomorrow. You cannot cling to what is familiar and step into what is greater at the same time. You cannot grieve what God is ending while also receiving what God is releasing. And I need to say this gently but honestly. Some of you have been using prayer to delay obedience. You've been asking God to change what God has already decided to remove. You've been asking for signs when the answer has already been given. You've been asking for peace while refusing surrender. God does not negotiate with the destiny. The reason this feels so intense is because this ending is not small. This is not a minor adjustment. This is not a temporary pause. This is a divine severing, and severing is necessary when something has grown into the wrong place. What God is cutting away has been feeding on your energy, your focus, your faith, your identity. It has been shaping your decisions more than you realized. It has been speaking into your future without your permission. And God will not allow anything to compete with the purpose placed inside you. You were not created to live in limbo. You were not created to constantly question your worth. You were not created to beg for what should freely flow. You were not created to remain in spaces that shrink you. God says, I am ending this because I love you too much to let you stay where you are. And I know the fear that rises when endings come. Fear of the unknown, fear of loss, fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of regret. But let me tell you something, your fear does not want you to know. What you are afraid of losing has already been lost in its true form. What remains is only the shell. God does not end the real things. God ends counterfeit continuations. God ends what has already finished in the spirit, but is still lingering in the natural. You may feel like you're being pushed into uncertainty, but you are actually being pulled into alignment. You may feel like something is being taken from you, but in truth, something is being returned to you, your clarity, your authority, your peace, your future. This ending will hurt less than the damage of staying. There is a version of you on the other side of this decision that you have not met yet. Stronger, clearer, more grounded, more alive. But you cannot meet that version while clinging to what God has declared finished. God says, trust me with the ending, even if you don't understand it. Understand this. Final does not mean forgotten. Over does not mean wasted. Ended does not mean meaningless. Every season you lived mattered. Every lesson shaped you. Every tear counted. But seasons are not meant to last forever. When God closes a chapter, it is not to erase the story. It is to continue it correctly. You have been interpreting God's silence as abandonment, but it was preparation. God was strengthening you for the moment when you would no longer be able to lean on what you used to. God was training your spirit to stand without crutches. Now the moment has arrived. And yes, it will feel lonely at first. Silence often follows severance. Not because God has left, but because God is clearing the noise. You will hear God more clearly after this. You will see more sharply. You will move more boldly. Do not run back to what God has ended just because the future feels unfamiliar. Familiarity is not safety. Comfort is not calling. Repetition is not faithfulness. God says, let it go. Do not look back. Do not reopen what I have closed. There is nothing for you there anymore. No growth, no expansion, no life, only repetition and compromise, only delay and distraction. And I know your heart wants to argue. I know you want to say, but what if it changes? What if I wait a little longer? What if I try one more time? But hear this with clarity and love. If it were meant to continue, God would not be speaking like this. Final does not come without long patience. Final does not come without countless warnings. Final does not come without mercy already extended. This is not God giving up on you. This is God stepping in for you. What is ending was never meant to define you. What is ending was only meant to refine you. And now that refining is complete. Your obedience in this moment will determine the speed of your next breakthrough. Delay will only prolong the discomfort. Resistance will only deepen the pain. Surrender will bring peace faster than you expect. God is not asking you to understand the whole path, only to take the next step without dragging the past behind you. You will grieve. That is human. You will question. That is natural. But do not doubt God's wisdom. Do not rewrite the truth to make the ending feel easier. Do not call what God has closed unfinished. And now that the weight of that truth has settled, God says there is something deeper you must understand, because endings are not just about what stops. They are about what begins to breathe again inside you. What God has ended externally is directly connected to what God is restoring internally. This is not random. This is precise. This is intentional. This is divine alignment unfolding in real time. There are parts of you that have been silenced for a long time. Parts of you that learned to be quiet in order to survive. Parts of you that adapted to environments that were never meant to be permanent. God watched you adjust. God watched you endure. God watched you compromise your own joy just to keep peace. And God says, I never ask you to disappear to keep something alive. That is why this ending feels like both a loss and a liberation. Because while something is closing, something else is finally being allowed to speak. Your voice, your conviction, your spiritual authority, your discernment. You are not losing yourself, you are getting yourself back. God says there are decisions you were never supposed to carry alone. There were burdens you accepted out of loyalty, fear, or hope that things would eventually change. But hope without alignment becomes bondage. And God refuses to let hope be used against you. This ending is God correcting a direction that was slowly pulling you away from who you were created to be. Not all wrong paths look dark. Some are well-lit, familiar, and comfortable, but they still lead away from destiny. And God, in mercy, intervenes before comfort turns into captivity. You may feel exposed now, as if the covering you relied on has been removed. But hear this clearly. God never removes a covering without becoming your covering. What feels like vulnerability is actually divine protection being repositioned. There is a strength God is drawing out of you that could not emerge while you were leaning on what was ending. There is a clarity God is sharpening that could not form while you were distracted. There is a calling God is awakening that could not rise while your attention was divided. God says, I am teaching you how to stand without leaning. And this is where faith becomes real, not when things make sense, not when the future is clear, but when you choose to trust the character of God more than the comfort of certainty. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is obedience in the presence of it. You are not being abandoned in this moment. You are being repositioned. You are being moved from survival into intention, from reaction into direction, from waiting into walking. There are doors ahead that will only open when you stop looking back. There are answers that will only come when you stop revisiting old questions. There is peace that will only settle when you accept that God's no more is just as loving as God's yes. God says, do not mourn what I have removed as if it were still life-giving. Some of what you call the love was endurance. Some of what you call the patience was a self-neglect. Some of what you call the faith was a fear of a change. But God is not exposing this to shame you. God is freeing you from it. This is a moment of spiritual maturity. A moment where you no longer need to be convinced that God knows what God is doing. A moment where you stop asking for reassurance and start moving with resolve. You have outgrown the need for constant confirmation. You already know. Your spirit already knows. That quiet certainty you feel beneath the emotions, that is truth. God says, I have given you enough evidence of my faithfulness to trust me with this. And listen, what comes next will not arrive in chaos. It will arrive in clarity. It will feel steady, grounded, and aligned. It will not demand that you shrink or rush or prove yourself. It will meet you where obedience has positioned you. But first, You must walk through the silence without filling it with noise. You must allow space without rushing to replace what is gone. You must resist the urge to recreate what God has intentionally removed. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is a preparation. God does some of the deepest work in the quiet moments. After an ending, when no one is applauding, when no one is affirming, when it's just you and the truth. That is where foundations are reset. That is where motives are purified. That is where strength is rebuilt. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time, because God's timing is not measured by urgency, but by readiness. God says, I am not delaying you. I am developing you. And what God is developing now will carry you farther than what you were holding on to ever could. Do not underestimate what obedience in this moment unlocks. Do not underestimate the authority that comes from letting go without bitterness. Do not underestimate the peace that follows surrender. You are stepping into a season where you will no longer need to explain your boundaries, where your clarity will speak for itself, where your presence will feel different because you are no longer fragmented. This ending is not shrinking your world, it is refining it. God is teaching you discernment, not distrust. Strength, not hardness. Wisdom, not withdrawal. You will love again. You will build again. You will trust again, but from a place of wholeness, not hunger. And even now, as you stand in this space between what was and what will be, God is not silent. God is shaping something inside you that cannot be rushed, replicated, or forced. There is a holy forming happening beneath the surface, quiet, unseen, but powerful. This is the kind of work that does not announce itself, yet transforms everything it touches. God is teaching you how to trust without needing proof, how to move without needing applause, how to obey without needing explanation. This is deeper faith, not emotional faith. This is rooted faith. This is the kind of faith that doesn't depend on circumstances to feel strong. You are learning how to breathe again without pressure, how to think without confusion, how to exist without constant inner conflict. That is not accidental. That is restoration happening at the core level of your being. God says, I am rebuilding your inner world before I expand your outer one. Because expansion without stability becomes collapse. Growth without grounding becomes exhaustion. Blessing without wisdom becomes burden, and God will not elevate what has not been healed. This is why this season feels slow, quiet, and sacred. God is rewiring your patterns. God is reshaping your responses. God is refining your desires. What you once wanted desperately, you now see clearly. What once felt urgent now feels unnecessary. What once controlled you now has no power over you. That is not numbness. That is a freedom. God is teaching you how to live without emotional chaos, how to choose peace without guilt, how to stand in truth without fear. This is a spiritual adulthood. This is inner authority. This is the maturity that comes from surrender, not struggle. You are becoming someone who no longer needs noise to feel alive. Someone who no longer needs approval to feel worthy. Someone who no longer needs validation to feel secure. God says, I am stabilizing you for what I am about to trust you with. Because what is coming will require wisdom, not impulse. Discernment, not desperation. Stillness, not striving. Strength, not anxiety. And listen carefully, what God is preparing is not fragile. It will not be built on uncertainty. It will not require you to lose yourself. It will not demand constant sacrifice of your peace. It will not pull you away from who you are becoming. What God builds lasts. The next season will not be loud, but it will be powerful. Not chaotic, but ordered. Not rushed, but steady. Not confusing, but clear. It will feel different because it will be different. God is removing you from cycles and moving you into alignment. You are stepping out of survival mode and into purpose mode. Out of a defense mode and into discernment mode. Out of a reaction mode and into direction mode. Your life is no longer being shaped by what happens to you. It is being shaped by what God is doing in you. And that changes everything. There will be moments when the past tries to call you back, not because it has power, but because it is familiar. Familiarity is seductive. It feels safe. It feels known. But safety without growth becomes stagnation. And God refused to let you rot in comfort. God says, I am not calling you back. I am calling you higher. Higher in thought, higher in vision, higher in discipline, higher in faith, higher in identity. You are no longer a person who reacts to life. You are becoming a person who responds with wisdom. You are no longer driven by fear. You are guided by truth. You are no longer ruled by emotion. You are anchored in conviction. This is a transformation that does not need to announce itself. It speaks through your peace. It speaks through your boundaries. It speaks through your stillness. It speaks through your clarity. God is teaching you that silence can be sacred, that solitude can be strengthening, that waiting can be worship. Not everything powerful is loud. Not everything divine is dramatic. Some of the greatest miracles happen quietly inside the mind, inside the heart, inside the will. And one day you will look back and realize that this season changed everything, not because of what you gained, but because of what you released. You will see that the ending was not an ending at all. It was a crossing, not a collapse, but a transition, not a loss, but a passage. God does not destroy futures. God redirects them. God does not abandon lives. God realigns them. God does not confuse purpose. God clarifies it. You are walking into a life that feels lighter because it is truer, clearer because it is cleaner, stronger because it is rooted in God, not circumstance. And when fear whispers, what if this doesn't work? Faith answers, what if God is already ahead of you? When doubt says, you're alone, truth responds, God has never left you. Even when the mind says, you don't know what's next, the Spirit says, you know who is leading. And that is enough. You do not need a whole map. You do not need a full picture. You do not need every answer. You only need obedience for the next step. God is not asking you to be fearless. God is asking you to be faithful. Faithful to truth. Faithful to growth. Faithful to obedience. Faithful to becoming who you were created to be. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are in process. And process is holy. Process is sacred. Process is purposeful. God is shaping something eternal out of something temporary. And as this becoming deepens, you will notice something subtle but profound shifting within you. Your reactions will slow. Your discernment will sharpen. Situations that once demanded emotional energy will no longer control your spirit. This is not numbness. This is mastery. God is teaching you how to govern your inner world, so the outer world no longer dictates your peace. There was a time when every unexpected change shook you, when uncertainty felt like a threat instead of an invitation. But God has been reshaping your perspective. You are beginning to see that uncertainty is often the birthplace of faith, and transition is where obedience learns how to breathe. God does not remove certainty to confuse you. God removes it to reveal who you truly trust. God says, I am strengthening your faith beyond the dependence on outcomes. There are moments ahead when the path will look quiet, even uneventful. Do not mistake that for stagnation. Some of the most powerful movements of God happen beneath the surface, where no applause follows and no confirmation comes from people. Growth that is unseen is often the growth that lasts the longest. You are learning how to move without constant affirmation. That is a sign of spiritual maturity. When you no longer need approval to obey, when you no longer need recognition to remain faithful, you begin to walk in freedom. And freedom does not announce itself, it steadies you. God says, I am teaching you how to stand without leaning on voices that cannot carry you. There will be moments when silence tests you. Silence after prayer, silence after obedience, silence after surrender. But silence does not mean God has stopped speaking. Sometimes silence means God is watching to see if you will trust what was already spoken. Do not rush to fill the quiet with doubt. Let the quiet strengthen your confidence. Let the quiet deepen your roots. Let the quiet teach you patience. Patience is not waiting without movement. Patience is moving at the pace of trust. God is not slow. God is precise. And in this precision, you will begin to recognize patterns breaking that you once thought were permanent. Cycles of exhaustion, cycles of confusion, cycles of emotional highs and lows that kept you off balance. God has been dismantling those patterns one by one, not with force, but with wisdom. You are no longer being driven by urgency. You are being guided by intention. God says, I am removing the pressure you placed on yourself to rush what I am carefully building. You do not need to hurry into the future. The future knows how to meet you at the right time. What you are building now, your character, your discernment, your obedience will sustain you when the next door opens. And when it opens, you will walk through it ready, not desperate. Desperation distorts decisions. Readiness strengthens them. God is shaping you into someone who chooses from peace, not panic, from clarity, not fear, from conviction, not emotion. And there is a humility growing in you that is powerful, not the kind that makes you invisible, but the kind that keeps you grounded. You no longer need to be right all the time. You no longer need to control every outcome. You no longer need to prove your worth. You know who holds your future. God says, I am teaching you how to rest without losing momentum. Rest does not mean stopping. Rest means trusting God to work while you remain obedient. It means knowing when to act and when to wait. It means understanding that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every door is yours to push open. Some doors open when you stop forcing them. And as you continue forward, you will notice that your prayers begin to change. Less pleading, more alignment, less desperation, more trust. You will start praying from a place of agreement with God, not negotiation. Agreement carries power. When you agree with what God is doing, even when it's uncomfortable, you step into a deeper level of peace. Peace does not always remove challenges, but it removes confusion about who is guiding you through them. God is guiding you. There will be moments when fear tries to reintroduce itself, whispering that you might fail, that you might regret disobedience, that you might be alone. But fear has no authority here. Fear speaks loudly, but it has no truth to stand on when God is leading. God says, I have already gone ahead of you. You are not stepping into uncertainty alone. You are stepping into territory God has already prepared. What feels unfamiliar to you is not unfamiliar to God. And one day, not far from now, you will realize that this ending was not an interruption. It was an invitation to live with greater integrity, greater peace, greater alignment, greater faith. You will thank God for the clarity that once hurt. You will thank God for the closure that once confused you. You will thank God for the strength that was built in moments you wanted answers instead. Until then, keep walking with humility. Keep listening with discernment. Keep trusting even when the road is quiet. God is steady. God is present. God is faithful. And the work God is doing in you now is preparing you for a future that will not collapse under pressure because it was built on surrender. You are exactly where you need to be. And what God is shaping within you will speak louder than anything you left behind. And as this journey unfolds, you will begin to recognize a new kind of strength forming inside you, a strength that does not demand attention, yet commands respect. It is the strength that comes from alignment with God, not from resistance to reality. This strength does not rise in moments of applause. It is forged in quiet decisions where obedience costs something, but peace follows. There will be times when the weight of responsibility feels heavier than before, not because you are weaker, but because God is entrusting you with greater clarity. With clarity comes accountability. With vision comes responsibility. And God would never place weight on you without also increasing your capacity to carry it. God says, I am expanding your inner strength to match where I am leading you. You are no longer reacting to life as it happens to you. You are responding from a place of awareness. You are learning to pause, to listen, to move with the intention rather than impulse. This is the mark of someone being guided, not driven. There was a time when every obstacle felt personal, every delay felt like a rejection. But now you are beginning to see obstacles as a redirection and delays as a protection. Perspective changes everything. And perspective is one of the greatest gifts God gives during transition. God does not waste moments. Every pause has a purpose. Every waiting season carries wisdom. Every unanswered question is a shaping discernment. You are being trained to recognize God's hand even when it does not look like what you expected. God says, I am teaching you how to trust my presence more than my process. There will be moments when the process feels slow, when progress feels invisible. That is when faith is deepening beyond the emotion. Faith that depends on feelings will collapse under pressure. Faith that rests in truth remains steady. You are learning to trust God without needing constant reassurance. That trust is becoming the foundation of your peace. And understand that this peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the assurance that God is in control even when circumstances are unresolved. Peace is knowing you are not responsible for outcomes, only for obedience. God has not called you to carry the weight of the future. God has called you to walk faithfully in the present. As you continue, you will notice that all the fears no longer have the same power. They may still appear, but they no longer dictate your decisions. Fear loses influence when faith gains clarity. God says, I am teaching you how to move forward even when fear speaks. Fear will always question what faith already knows. But faith does not need fear's permission to proceed. Faith moves because God has spoken. And when God speaks, the voice carries authority that overrides uncertainty. You are stepping into a phase of life where discernment will protect you more than explanation. You will no longer feel the need to justify your obedience. You will recognize when silence is wisdom and when speech is unnecessary. God is refining your discernment so you can recognize alignment without force. There is a simplicity returning to your spirit. Decisions are becoming clearer. Boundaries are becoming firmer. Your energy is becoming more focused. This is not withdrawal. This is refinement. God says, I am teaching you how to preserve your strength. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every invitation requires a response. Not every opinion needs a reaction. You are learning how to protect what God is building within you. Protection is not isolation. Protection is discernment in action. And there will be moments when others do not understand your choices. Let that be okay. Understanding is not required for obedience. Approval is not necessary for alignment. God did not call you to be explained. God called you to be led. You are walking a path that requires trust more than visibility. God says, I am asking you to trust me even when the next step feels unfamiliar. And as you trust, you will begin to notice joy returning, not loud, not overwhelming, but steady. A joy that is not tied to circumstances, a joy that exists even in uncertainty. That joy is not excitement, it is assurance. Assurance that you are where you are supposed to be. God is not distant in this season. God is closer than ever. God is shaping you through awareness, through surrender, through intentional movement. The work being done now will prepare you to carry what is coming without losing yourself in it. You are becoming someone who can receive without fear, lead without pride, and stand without needing constant confirmation. God says, I am preparing you for stability. Stability is not stagnation. Stability is a strength with balance. It is knowing how to move forward without losing grounding. It is knowing when to advance and when to wait. This is the foundation God built before expansion. And when expansion comes, you will not be overwhelmed. You will be ready because you allowed God to end what was draining you. Because you trusted God through the silence. Because you walked forward when it would have been easier to stay behind. Your obedience has not been unnoticed. Your surrender has not been wasted. Your faith has not been misplaced. God is faithful. And the path ahead, though still unfolding, is anchored in divine wisdom. Keep moving with humility. Keep listening with discernment. Keep trusting with confidence. God is guiding you. God is shaping you. God is establishing what comes next. And what is ahead will not require you to lose yourself because God has already restored who you are. And now, as this moment settles into your spirit, let everything within you come to stillness, not emptiness, but reverence. This is not the end of a message. This is the sealing of a truth. What you have heard was not meant to impress you. It was meant to anchor you. to steady you, to remind you that God has been guiding you long before you understood the path. So walk forward without apology. Stand firm without explanation. Trust deeply without fear. God is not finished. God is faithful. God is ahead of you and within you. And what comes next will not require you to fight to belong, strive to be seen, or beg to be sustained. It will meet you where obedience has positioned you, and it will grow from the peace you have now learned to protect. This chapter is closed. The ending has served its purpose, and the future guided by God is already opening before you. Listen before you explain this moment, before you analyze it, before you whisper it even to yourself. Hear this with the seriousness it deserves. There are blessings so sacred that silence is not secrecy, it is obedience. There are movements of God so delicate that the moment you expose them to noise, they lose their power to form. This is one of those moments. This next blessing is not meant to be announced, defended, or displayed. It is meant to be carried in reverent quiet, like a holy fire wrapped in humility, growing stronger the longer it remains unseen. Some of you can feel it already. Something has shifted, not around you, but within you. The ground beneath your prayers feels different. The weight you have carried for years is loosening, and yet nothing on the surface has changed. That is how divine work begins, not with applause, but with pressure, not with visibility, but with depth. God does not always speak in thunder. Sometimes He whispers into the hidden chambers of the heart, and only those who are still enough will recognize the sound. Do not rush to explain what God is doing. Explanation invites interruption. When you speak too early, you invite opinions that were never meant to shape your destiny. You invite doubt into a room where faith was supposed to mature alone. God is not asking you to hide out of fear. He's asking you to guard out of wisdom. The seed is not weak because it is buried. It is powerful because it is buried. And this next blessing is still in the soil. There is a reason God has allowed you to be misunderstood in this season. There is a reason the doors have not opened publicly yet. There is a reason your prayers have become quieter and your faith more internal. God is doing a private work that cannot survive public discussion. What He is forming in you does not need validation, it needs incubation. Silence is not absence. Silence is a preparation. Many have lost what God intended to complete because they spoke before He finished. They celebrated before the structure was stable. They testified before the foundation was sealed. But God is precise. He is not careless with the timing. He does not rush what He values. And what He is preparing for you now is not small, not fragile, not temporary. It is weighty. It carries responsibility. It carries consequence. And that is why it must be protected. This next blessing will not look like what you expected. It will not arrive with the language you rehearsed. It may even feel uncomfortable at first because it will stretch you beyond the version of yourself that learned how to survive. God is not blessing the old you. He is calling forth the one you are becoming. That is why this season feels lonely. Not everyone can walk with you while God rearranges your identity. There are things God is removing from your life quietly, without drama, without confrontation. Relationships are shifting. Desires are changing. Old habits are losing their grip. And you may not even have the words to explain it yet. That is intentional. God is sparing you from having to defend what is dismantling. When He closes a chapter, He does not always ask for an announcement. He asks for trust. Do not tell anyone about this next blessing, because not everyone has the capacity to hear it without contaminating it. Some will question it because it does not fit their understanding of your limits. Some will doubt it because they are uncomfortable with your growth. Some will try to manage it because it exposes what they avoided. But God did not consult them when He chose you, and He does not require their agreement now. What God is about to do will speak for itself. You do not need to narrate it. You do not need to explain the process. When the time comes, the evidence will be undeniable. Until then, let your faith be quiet and your obedience loud. Let your prayers be deep and your words few. Heaven does not respond to volume, it responds to alignment. There is a holy restraint that God is teaching you. Not everything you feel needs to be expressed. Not every door that opens needs to be walked through immediately. Not every blessing needs to be shared the moment it is conceived. Maturity is knowing when to move and when to remain still. Wisdom is recognizing that God's timing is part of His protection. This next blessing is not just an answer to prayer, it is a turning point. It will change how you see yourself. It will change what you tolerate. It will change how you listen for God's voice. And because it will redefine you, it must first be rooted in secrecy. God often hides His greatest works in plain sight, disguised as waiting, disguised as delay, disguised as nothing happening. But something is happening. Heaven is active. The unseen is busy. While you sleep, while you question, while you wonder if you heard God correctly, He is arranging details you could not plan, aligning people you have not met, and closing doors you were never meant to enter. This is not the season to explain. It is the season to trust. You may feel the urge to announce it because you have waited so long. You may want someone to affirm that you are not imagining this shift, but God is teaching you to lean into Him alone. The affirmation you are seeking from others is already settled in heaven. You do not need the permission to become what God has already authorized. This blessing will come with clarity, but not all at once. God reveals in portions because full revelation would overwhelm you. Step by step, layer by layer, He will unfold what you need when you need it. That is why silence is essential. It keeps you dependent. It keeps you listening. It keeps you close. There are prayers you prayed years ago that are only now reaching maturity. You thought God had forgotten, but He was waiting for you to become ready to receive without losing yourself. Delay was not denial, it was a development. And now that the time is near, God is asking you to remain calm, grounded, and quiet. Do not rush this moment. Do not let excitement turn into exposure. Sacred things lose their power when they are handled casually. Treat this blessing with reverence. Protect it from comparison. Protect it from premature celebration. Protect it from voices that speak louder than God. You will know when it is time to speak. God will make it unmistakably clear. Until then, let your life be the sermon and your obedience be the testimony. What is coming will not need explanation. It will carry its own authority. It will bear its own fruit. It will stand without defense. This is not about fear. This is about faith refined by discipline. God trusts you with the silence because He trusts you with the responsibility. He would not ask you to guard what He did not value. And He would not entrust you with this next blessing if you are not ready to carry it with humility. There is a deeper reason God asked for silence before revelation, and it has nothing to do with hiding and everything to do with the strengthening. What He is building in you must first become unshakable within you. If your faith depends on constant affirmation, then it is still fragile. God is maturing you to the point where obedience is no longer driven by applause and trust is no longer fueled by reassurance. He is teaching you to stand even when no one claps, to believe even when no one agrees, to move forward even when no one understands the direction you are taking. This is how God separates calling from curiosity. Many want to know what God is doing, but few are willing to submit to how He does it. Silence refines your motives. It reveals whether you desire the blessing itself or the God who gives it. When no one is watching, when no one is affirming, when no one is praising your progress, your heart is exposed. And God is gentle but intentional in this exposure. He is not shaming you, He is strengthening you. There are dimensions of favor that only open to those who can be trusted with quiet obedience. God does not release weighty assignments to those who leak everything they receive. He entrusts them to those who know how to listen more than they speak, to pray more than they announce, to wait more than they rush. The blessing coming towards you is not merely for your comfort. It carries influence. And influence without discipline becomes destruction. That is why God is training your spirit before He transforms your situation. You may have noticed that God has been drawing you away from noise. Conversations that once energized you now feel empty. Arguments that once demanded your attention now feel unnecessary. Even your desire to prove yourself has weakened. This is not loss, it is alignment. God is quieting your appetite for distraction so you can hear Him clearly. He is pruning what competes for your focus, because clarity is essential for what is coming. What you are sensing is not imagination, it is the nearness of divine intention. God is closer than He has ever been, not because you earned it, but because the moment requires it. There are instructions coming that cannot be carried by a distracted mind. There are decisions ahead that will shape years, not days. And God is ensuring that when He speaks, you are ready to respond without confusion. This next blessing will demand the courage, not just the gratitude. It will require faith that moves before evidence appears. It will ask you to trust God beyond the familiar patterns and comfortable expectations. That is why He is training you now in the quiet, where your dependence can deepen without pressure. Public victories are born in private surrender. Do not misinterpret this stillness as inactivity. God is strategic. While you are waiting, He is weaving. While you are resting, He is arranging. While you are silent, He is speaking to circumstances you cannot reach. Nothing is delayed. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is out of order. Heaven is not behind schedule. There will come a moment when you realize the silence was a gift. When you see how many storms you were spared, how many conflicts never reached you, how many wrong doors closed without explanation, you will understand that God was protecting the integrity of your assignment. What He has planned for you requires peace of mind, clarity of heart, and firmness of faith. Chaos cannot coexist with the divine order. God is also teaching you discernment. Not everyone who listens understands, and not everyone who understands supports. Silence sharpens your ability to recognize where God is welcomed and where He is resisted. It trains you to move with wisdom rather than impulse, This is not isolation, it is preparation for connection that is aligned, not forced. When the blessing unfolds, it will not arrive as a reward for endurance, but as a fulfillment of purpose. You are not merely waiting for relief, you are being shaped for responsibility. God does not elevate people to escape them from struggle. He elevates them to position them for impact. And impact requires a heart anchored in Him alone. There is a sacred tension in this season, and it is intentional. God is stretching your capacity without breaking your spirit. He is enlarging your understanding without overwhelming your faith. You may feel pulled between what you know and what you sense, between the life you recognize and the future you cannot yet explain. That tension is not confusion, it is expansion. God grows you by inviting you to trust Him in spaces where logic no longer leads and certainty has not yet arrived. This is where faith becomes more than belief. It becomes posture. It becomes how you breathe, how you choose, how you remain steady when answers are incomplete. God is shaping a steadiness in you that does not depend on outcomes. He is teaching you to anchor yourself in His character rather than His timing. When you trust who He is, you can wait for what He does without panic. There is also a refinement happening in how you hear. God is training your ear to recognize His voice beneath the noise of urgency. Many mistake pressure for direction, but God does not rush you into purpose. He leads you with clarity that settles the heart even when the path is unfamiliar. If you feel peace without explanation, that is not accidental. It is the confirmation of His presence. What is coming will require a heart that does not fracture under responsibility. God is preparing you to carry weight without losing tenderness, authority without pride, blessing without distraction. That balance is learned only in the quiet places where no one sees your discipline and no one rewards your restraint. Heaven sees, and heaven measures readiness differently than the world does. You may notice that your prayers are changing. You are asking for less proof and more alignment. You are seeking less control and more surrender. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. God is drawing you into a partnership where trust replaces negotiation, where obedience becomes instinctive rather than debated. This is how purpose matures. There will be moments when doubt tries to speak, not loudly, but subtly. It will ask if the waiting is worth it, if the silence means anything at all. In those moments, remember that God has never wasted a season. Every pause carries intention. Every delay holds design. If He has asked you to be still, it is because movement would interfere with what He is completing. God is also teaching you patience with yourself. Transformation does not happen overnight, and calling does not manifest fully formed. You are allowed to grow into what He has promised. You are allowed to learn without shame, to adjust without fear, to become without apology. God is not disappointed in your process. He is present in it. When the blessing emerges, it will not feel foreign. It will feel like recognition, like something your spirit has been rehearsing for a long time. You will understand then why the preparation was necessary, why the silence mattered, why the waiting shaped you. You will see how every quiet step built the strength you needed to stand when the moment arrived. Until that unveiling, remain attentive. God often speaks in invitations rather than commands, in nudges rather than declarations. Pay attention to what draws your peace and what disturbs it. Pay attention to what deepens your faith and what drains it. These are not coincidences, they are guidance. Let your heart stay soft and your resolve firm. Let your trust deepen beyond what you can articulate. God is faithful to complete what He begins, and He does not abandon His work halfway. The same hand that led you into this quiet place will lead you out at the right time with clarity, with strength, with purpose, fully awakened. And when that day comes, you will look back and realize that the silence was not emptiness. It was communion. It was instruction. It was the place where God prepared you not just to receive a blessing, but to become a vessel capable of honoring it. There is also a quiet courage being born in you, one that does not announce itself, but reveals itself when tested. God is teaching you how to stand without leaning on what is familiar. He is removing crutches you did not realize you depended on, not to leave you exposed, but to show you how strong His support truly is. When you discover that His presence is enough, fear loses its voice. You are learning how to move without urgency, how to decide without anxiety, how to trust without needing constant reassurance. This is the posture of a soul that has encountered God deeply. It is no longer driven by the need to rush into fulfillment, but guided by the assurance that fulfillment will arrive exactly when obedience has done its work. God is not late, He is exact. There are moments in this season when your emotions may rise unexpectedly. Joy without reason, tears without explanation, a sudden awareness that something is aligning beyond what you can see. These are not disruption. They are signs that your spirit is responding to God's nearness. When the heart senses divine order settling into place, it reacts before the mind can interpret it. God is also teaching you how to carry hope without impatience. Hope anchored in Him does not demand speed, it rests in certainty. You may not know the details, but you know the source. And that knowledge steadies you when questions remain unanswered. Faith is not the absence of questions, it is the decision to trust God more than the questions. There is a humility forming in you that will protect you when the blessing arrives. You are learning that everything meaningful flows from God and returns to Him. This understanding will keep your heart grounded when others notice what He has done. It will keep gratitude pure and ambition clean. God is shaping you to reflect His goodness without trying to replace Him. When the moment of revelation comes, it will not shock you, it will confirm you. It will feel like the natural continuation of what God has been whispering all along. You will recognize His hand in every detail, His wisdom in every delay, His mercy in every closed door. And you will see that nothing was wasted, not even the waiting. Until then, remain sensitive to His leading. Obedience is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply choosing trust again when doubt tries to resurface. Sometimes it is staying faithful in small decisions that no one else notices, God sees. He honors what is done in sincerity, even when it feels unseen. Let your spirit stay receptive. Let gratitude grow quietly. Let reverence shape how you wait. God is not only preparing a moment, He is preparing you. And when both are ready, they will meet with precision that leaves no room for regret. What is ahead will not be rushed, forced, or confused. It will arrive with peace, clarity, and purpose aligned perfectly with God's will. Until that day unfolds, remain still in your confidence and steady in your faith. The one who called you into this silence is faithful to lead you out of it, carrying with Him the fullness of what He promised, fulfilled in His perfect way. There is a holy resilience being etched into your spirit now, one that does not retreat when circumstances resist you. God is teaching you how to remain grounded even when progress feels invisible. He is anchoring you in truth rather than outcomes, in trust rather than timelines. This is how endurance is born, not through struggle alone, but through the quiet assurance that God is present even when nothing appears to be changing. You are discovering that faith is not loud confidence. It is steady surrender. It is choosing to believe that God is at work even when your hands are empty and your path feels narrow. In this place, your dependence is no longer desperate, it is deliberate. You are learning to lean into God, not because you have nowhere else to turn, but because you have finally realized there is nowhere better. God is also refining how you respond to uncertainty. Instead of reacting with fear, you are learning to pause. Instead of filling the silence with worry, you are letting it draw you closer to Him. This is growth that cannot be rushed. It is the kind of maturity that carries you through seasons of abundance without losing humility and through seasons of testing without losing hope. There is a strengthening happening in your inner life that no one else can see. Your convictions are becoming clearer. Your priorities are becoming simpler. Your desire to please God is outweighing your need to be understood. This is not isolation, it is consecration. God is setting you apart, not to remove you from life, but to prepare you for a life shaped by purpose rather than pressure. At times, you may feel like you are standing on the edge of something undefined, not falling, not moving forward, just standing. That stillness is sacred. God often positions His people on the threshold before transition, allowing them to breathe, to reflect, to release what no longer belongs to the next chapter. Do not rush past this moment. It is preparing your heart for what your hands will soon hold. God is also teaching you how to wait without losing joy. Joy rooted in Him is not dependent on progress reports or visible milestones. It flows from knowing that your life is held by a faithful God who does not abandon His promises. Even now, even here, there is a reason to rejoice, not because everything is clear, but because God is constant. When the blessing arrives, it will not feel like a reward for patience, but like a response to trust. You will recognize that God was shaping your character as carefully as He was shaping your future. You will see how restraint protected you, how silence preserved you, how waiting aligned you, and you will understand that God was not withholding, He was preparing. Until that unveiling, continue to walk with integrity when no one is watching. Continue to choose faith when doubt presents itself quietly. Continue to listen more than you speak. God honors the heart that remains teachable, the spirit that stays humble, the life that stays surrendered. What lies ahead is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect circumstances or flawless execution. It rests on God's faithfulness, which does not waver. And when the appointed moment arrives, it will come with a peace that confirms it was never rushed, never forced, never misplaced. There is a deeper awakening unfolding now, one that reshapes how you understand the strength. God is teaching you that strength is not found in control, but in trust refined by obedience. You are learning how to release the need to manage outcomes and instead rest in divine wisdom that sees beyond your reach. This surrender is not passive, it is powerful. It positions you where God's hand can move without resistance. You may sense that your spirit is becoming more alert, more discerning. You are noticing subtleties you once overlooked. The weight of certain choices feels heavier, and the pull toward what is pure feels stronger. This is not pressure, it is alignment. God is sharpening your awareness so you can walk with intention, recognizing what builds your calling and what quietly erodes it. Discernment is a gift that protects you long before danger ever appears. God is also redefining success in your heart. What once felt impressive now feels empty, and what once felt small now carries great meaning. This shift is holy. It frees you from chasing validation and anchors you in obedience. When success is defined by faithfulness rather than visibility, peace becomes your companion and contentment grows even before the blessing arrives. There will be moments when God asks you to move before you fully understand why. These steps will feel subtle, even ordinary, but they carry great significance. Obedience does not always come with explanation. Sometimes it comes with a quiet knowing that this step matters more than you realize. Trust that God is guiding you with precision, even when the path feels understated. You are also learning how to forgive silently, to release without announcement, to heal without spectacle. God is cleansing your heart of burdens that would weigh you down in the next season. What He is preparing requires freedom, freedom from resentment, freedom from regret, freedom from the need to revisit what He has already redeemed. Letting go is not forgetting, it is choosing to trust God with what you no longer need to carry. As this season continues, you may find yourself less reactive and more reflective. Instead of responding quickly, you are learning to listen deeply. Instead of defending yourself, you are allowing God to be your vindication. This calm is not weakness. It is confidence rooted in knowing who holds your future. God is teaching you that not every battle requires your voice. Some require your stillness. There is also quiet joy being restored, one not dependent on circumstances. It surfaces in moments of prayer, in moments of gratitude, in moments when you realize how far God has brought you. This joy is steady, not fleeting. It reminds you that even before fulfillment arrives, you are already held, already guided, already loved by a faithful God. When the time comes for the blessing to fully emerge, you will recognize that it fits you differently than anything before. It will not overwhelm you or distract you from God. It will draw you closer to Him. You will see that every season of preparation refined your capacity to steward what He gives with wisdom and humility. Until that day unfolds, continue to honor the process. Let patience deepen your faith. Let obedience shape your character. Let trust anchor your hope. God is not distant. He is deliberate. Every quiet moment, every unseen step, every faithful choice is part of a divine design that is unfolding with care. Remain attentive to His presence. Remain faithful in small things. Remain confident in His promises. The journey you are on is purposeful, and the God who leads you does not fail. When all is revealed, you will understand that the silence, the waiting, and the refinement were not obstacles. They were invitations into a deeper walk with Him. One that prepared you not only to receive the blessing, but to honor it with your life. There is an invitation in this hour to trust God with a depth you have never known before. Not the kind of a trust that forms when things are going well, but the kind that settles into the soul when outcomes are still unseen. God is drawing you into a relationship where faith is no longer reactive, but rooted, no longer conditional, but complete. He is teaching you how to rest your entire weight on Him without bracing for disappointment. You may notice that your sense of urgency has softened. What once felt like pressure now feels like patience. This is not because your desire has faded, but because your confidence has grown. God has been quietly assuring you that what belongs to you cannot pass you by. When you truly believe that, striving loses its grip and peace becomes your posture. God is also refining your inner dialogue. The questions that once filled your thoughts are being replaced with quiet assurance. Where uncertainty once lingered, trust is taking residence. This transformation is subtle, but it is powerful. It changes how you wake up, how you pray, how you interpret delays. You are no longer measuring your life by what is missing, but by who is guiding it. There is a sacred awareness developing in you, a sensitivity to God's timing. You are learning that not every open door is yours to enter, and not every pause is meant to be broken. God's wisdom is teaching you restraint, not as denial, but as protection. What He has prepared for you requires discernment, not haste. At times, God may allow you to feel the weight of waiting just enough to deepen your reliance on Him. This is not cruelty, it is intimacy. He's teaching you to come to Him not only for answers, but for companionship. In the stillness, you are discovering that His presence is not a means to an end, it is the greatest gift of all. You are also being taught how to hold expectation without entitlement. You believe God will act, but you do not demand how or when. This posture honors Him. It keeps your heart soft and your faith flexible. God responds to trust that does not try to control the outcome, but surrenders it fully into His hands. When doubts attempt to revisit you, they will find less room to stay. Not because circumstances have changed, but because your foundation has. You are learning to anchor yourself in God's faithfulness rather than your feelings. This is a strength that will sustain you not only now, but in every season to come. There is a quiet boldness forming in you as well. Not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that moves forward without needing approval. God is freeing you from the weight of expectation placed on you by others and even by yourself. You are beginning to live from obedience rather than obligation, from conviction rather than comparison. As this journey continues, you may sense a growing clarity about what truly matters. Distractions lose their appeal. Noise loses its influence. Your heart is becoming more single-minded, more devoted, more aligned with God's purpose. This focus is not narrow, it is freeing. It allows you to walk forward without carrying what does not belong to you. And when the moment finally arrives, when God allows what has been forming in secret to emerge into view, it will do so with grace and authority. It will not feel rushed or uncertain. It will feel right. You will recognize it as the unfolding of something God has been preparing long before you could articulate it. Until that moment, remain anchored, remain receptive, remain faithful in the unseen places. God is not only preparing what is next, He is preparing you to walk into it with wisdom, humility, and strength. Every quiet step is guided. Every moment of trust is counted. And every promise God has spoken is moving steadily toward the fulfillment, carried by His perfect timing and sustained by His unchanging faithfulness. So now, as this sacred journey draws toward its unveiling, let your heart settle into confidence rather than anticipation. God has not brought you this far to leave anything unfinished. What He begins, He completes with intention, care, and precision. The quiet you have lived in was not emptiness, it was alignment. The waiting was not punishment, it was preparation. Every unseen step has been guided by a faithful hand that does not mislead or forget. Carry this final truth with reverence. You were never delayed, overlooked, or set aside. You were being positioned. God was shaping you into someone who could receive without losing wonder, lead without losing humility, and walk in blessing without drifting from His presence. That is why the silence mattered. That is why restraint was required. That is why trust was tested and strengthened. When the moment comes, and it will come, you will not need to rush, explain, or prove anything. What God reveals will speak with clarity that no argument can challenge. What He establishes will stand without defense. And what He places in your hands will rest securely because your heart has been anchored in Him long before the blessing arrived. Until that unveiling becomes visible, remain faithful. Remain surrendered. Remain attentive. Let your life quietly testify to a God who is working beyond what eyes can see. And when the season shifts, when the hidden becomes evident, you will know without doubt that silence was never lost. It was sacred obedience. Do not tell anyone about this next blessing, not because it is uncertain, but because it is assured. Not because it is fragile, but because it is holy. God is faithful. God is sovereign. And in His perfect time, everything He promised will rise whole, complete, and unmistakably marked by His hand.